his favorite vase.
She always says don't play ball in the house.
Pork chops and applesauce. That's swell.
Marcia. Hey, you guys. Anyway, no!
Welcome to Here's the Story, a Brady Bunch podcast. Hey, I'm not going to tear this thing apart. It's my favorite show. This marks a very special episode of the podcast for me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Here we have episode 7, Kitty Carryall is missing. In the pilot episode, Cindy had a Madame Alexander rag doll, but has since been seen always playing with a different doll. One with blonde pigtails like herself, and a red dress full of pockets to carry stuff in. And that must be why she's named Kitty Karry-All. Strange to see them act like it's a relatively new doll for her at this point, but with the order these episodes were produced, this is actually only the 3rd episode of Cindy having her. And boy does she love that doll. Something her brother Bobby just doesn't understand. And he's quite mean about it. He comes marching into the room playing his kazoo and basically berates Cindy and Kitty Karry-All. Take note, for a family that would go on to have a burgeoning music career, this is the first musical contribution to the show by any member of the Bradys. And I think the song that Bobby is playing is the Washington Post March by John Philip Sousa. Well, soon enough, the doll vanishes, and Cindy insists that Bobby must have taken her. Bobby says he didn't. His brothers believe him, but his sisters don't. And I'm pretty sure my family had a couch that was upholstered with the same fabric used to make Bobby's pants. While all 6 kids start arguing in their shared bathroom, Mike and Carol come in to settle the matter. And seeing all 8 of them in that bathroom with room to spare shows just how elusively large that room is. And you can see the tub has no shower curtain because it doesn't even have a shower head. Those 6 kids had to take turns taking long baths every night. No quick showers for the Brady Bunch. Mike puts the whole family to work searching the house from top to bottom for Cindy's doll. And one of the first places he checks is inside the oven. My brother was just mentioning to me about how he always thought it was so cool that they had an oven inside the wall of the kitchen. There's actually 2 ovens in that brick wall, one below the other, and on the side, an indoor grill in the wall that they never use. During the search, Bobby is still indignant about the doll, which ends up turning his brothers against him, and Mike has to step in with his super advice powers again. This gets the kids to rope Alice into being a judge that presides over the mock trial they put Bobby on. That is until she burns the pot roast. I think Susan Olsen does a great job acting as Cindy in this episode. And we get to see Marcia run around again with the arms of a dead orangutan. Later on, we have a very similar scene to the earlier one with Cindy in the playroom and Bobby marching in while playing his kazoo. Only this time Cindy is coloring a book, and Bobby notices her new elephant toy on the floor. Carol just bought it for Cindy to probably try to get her mind off of Kitty Karry-All, but it didn't work. Bobby, on the other hand, says it looks groovy. The actors hated when the scripts had them say groovy. He sets his kazoo down and starts playing with the 1968 Mumbo Jumbo the Tumbling Elephant from Remco. By the way, none of the Bradys smoke, yet I count 3 ashtrays in this little room alone. Though in a future episode we'll learn that Mike smoked in college. Soon enough, just like in the earlier scene, a toy seems to vanish. And this time, it's Bobby's kazoo. And of course, he blames Cindy. Right then, Mike walks in, breaks up their fight, and has Bobby empty his pockets to see if the kazoo is in one of them. He comically takes out a few dozen items and places them on the table, some of which, like a large green paddle, seem to vanish and reappear as it switches between close-ups and long shots. But there's no kazoo. And that's when Carol walks in and says she's just searched the whole house again. No doll and no kazoo. How did she even know the kazoo was missing? It's only been a few seconds, and I guess her search for it consisted of a possible quick glance as she walked into the room. Well, both kids are upset, but Bobby finally stops being mean and does what a good Brady would do. He gets his piggy bank and goes to the toy store to buy Cindy a new Kitty Karry-All. At the store, we see a Star Trek flying rocket plane from Remco, which was a 1969 repackaged airplane from an earlier toy line called Horrible Hamilton. There's also a 1966 Remco Lost in Space robot and a Remco Kewpie doll. The store also has another tumbling elephant and a kitty Karry-All. From what I've been able to find, this was a standard doll from Remco that possibly had different clothes and its hair wasn't in pigtails, but the crew altered its appearance for the show. Now, soon after, it was marketed in real life with the look identical to the way it is on the show in a box that says, "As seen on the Brady Bunch." It had to have been out pretty fast because this episode aired on November 7th, 1969, and it was in stores before the year was out, in what has to be the very first piece of Brady Bunch merchandise. I don't think it was a big seller that Christmas, though, because the show wasn't a hit, and the doll is very rare. They might not have made too many. I think they were trying to duplicate the success of the Mrs. Beasley doll that was out 2 years earlier from Mattel, based on the one carried around by Buffy, the little girl in the show Family Affair. My daughter's mother had one of those as a child, and I bought her another one off of eBay in 1998. Bet you didn't even know eBay is that old. The store is run by Mr. Driscoll, played by Pitt Herbert, and he would return to play the same character in the same store in episode 21. When Bobby gets back home, he gives the doll to Cindy, and she says it's just not the same. Right then, Tiger runs off with Kitty, and the family gives chase. That's when Mike finds both of the dolls and the kazoo in Tiger's doghouse. This is still the original Tiger, who wouldn't get run over until filming the next episode that we covered in the last episode. I know, the air date order is a little hard to keep track of right now. In real life, Susan Olsen, Cindy, and Eve Plum, who played her sister Jan, each went home with one of those kitty Karry-Alls, and I think Susan still has hers. Okay, we end the show with one of those goofy lines of dialogue that no one ever says in real life.
Well, I might as well give up golf. That was my favorite club. Oh, well, I'm sunk now.
I've always wanted to fit, "well, I'm sunk now," into a conversation. And I noticed that during the end credits, Bobby is missing a tooth and has his natural red hair. Why didn't I notice that before? Now let's get to why this episode of my podcast is special. I originally found a Brady Bunch podcast with the best name ever and eagerly gave it a listen, but was so disappointed when it turns out they were just trashing the show. So I started my own podcast. But the name I picked may have been a little too generic because after I recorded my second episode, I discovered that someone else was already using the same name for their podcast. Only they had a colon where I have a hyphen. Anyway, they recorded their series 2 years ago and only made it to episode 6. So with this one of my series, I have surpassed them, and I hope to just keep going. This also just happens to be the final episode featured on the first Brady Bunch DVD. And so for this special occasion, I'd like to dive into a few extras. First, with this episode, we get to see Mike going in and out of a bathroom in the master bedroom. You can't really see much in the bathroom, and you never will in the series, but it's there. Behind the parents' bed is a shoji screen, like those walls made of paper in Japan, which hides a changing area that is never shown beyond a reflection in a mirror in one episode, and behind that is their bathroom. Now, the way these upstairs rooms are situated, the other side of that bathroom would be the wall at the top of the stairs above the living room that has a door in it. Either that door goes into their bathroom or it's a closet that cuts into it. Believe it or not, there's also a third bathroom in the Brady home that is never seen. There was an article in the Press Courier from October 26, 1969, 2 days after the 5th episode aired, that said the Brady house has 3 bathrooms. And in the 1988 TV movie, A Very Brady Christmas, one of the kids goes down a little hallway that is mostly hidden by the living room stairs, saying he's going to the bathroom, which would occupy the space between that hall and the little hall to Mike's den. And on the outside wall of that room, behind the stairs, is a large abstract painting that was used on the Mod Squad a year before the Brady Bunch aired. And above that painting is that wood paneling covering the wall, and on the far right, above the hallway to Mike's den, is that famous colored glass art piece. It's called a Mondrian, named for the artist Piet Mondrian, who made paintings with similar designs, of which you can see painted all over the Partridge Family bus. In front of the stairs is that famous horse sculpture. I'm calling everything on this show famous, but I think more people are familiar with this house than any other fictional house in history. They even made an homage version of the house in the 3rd episode of the new WandaVision series from Marvel, which included an actual kitty Karry-All. But back to that horse. It first shows up in the hands of none other than the greatest American hero's own, Robert Kulp, in a 1961 episode of the Barbara Stanwyck Show as a major plot device. Now, at some point during this episode, Mike goes out through the door in the kitchen to the service porch to leave and play golf. Only that door goes to the opposite side of the house from where his car is in the driveway. And he can't walk around to it through the backyard because it's all fenced in. But the show seemed to have everything lead to the area of the backyard next to the driveway that wouldn't really be possible. In future episodes, they'll have the boys' and the girls' bedroom windows, as well as the balcony from the parents' room, all overlooking the backyard, even though none of them would in reality. Well, we don't need reality to get in the way of our Brady fun. During the 90s, there was a series on VH1 called Pop-Up Video that featured music videos with pop-up balloons that would appear throughout them with little bits of trivia. In 2001, Nick at Night created a similar series called Pop-Up Brady that featured 9 random episodes, one of which was for an episode I've covered here, The Honeymoon, and it has some interesting tidbits I hadn't mentioned before. Like, working titles for the show was The Bradley Bunch and The Brady Brood. The first day of filming was Monday, September 30th, 1968, Barry Williams, Greg Brady's 14th birthday. The house used for Mike and the boys was the producer's neighbor's house, and Carol's parents' house, where she and the girls lived, was Sherwood Schwartz's friend's house. We filmed the home scenes in my first film, Miss Bonita Springs, 1967, in our director's house. And many of the commercials I've been in were in houses rented from local millionaires. Florence Henderson got the call to play Carol 2 days before filming began. And the photo of Bobby's dead mother, Mike's first wife, was of an actress who was up for the role of Carol but didn't get the part. And I don't know who it was, but it's not Joyce Bulifant. Carol's father had previously played Rob Petrie's father on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and the minister that married Mike and Carol would go on to play a reverend on Little House on the Prairie, which I believe is my brother's favorite show, and he'd come back more than 20 years later to play the minister that married Bobby in the spin-off series, The Bradys. Oddly enough, there's a pop-up that tells you Mike's pant size is 34 by 34. Mine is 30 by 32, but I think when I was his age, it was 28 by 32. We all get fat in our old age. And finally, Fluffy the cat's real name was Rhubarb, and the trainer had 36 backup cats, all named Rhubarb. I have a cat. I just call her Kitty, but not Kitty Karry-All. Until next time.